I had some trouble right then deciding whether or not I should breathe or play all of the notes. I decided to breathe, and you should too. Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, folks. This is take 3. Had some technical difficulties, which might not be shocking because I'm here to speak about Mercury retrograde. Now, I don't want to sing that same old tune, that same old song. Do nothing, hide under a rock, all communications will go wrong, your computer will explode on you, and the things that we too often hear from the astrological crew when Mercury comes close by. And that is happening because, my friends, Mercury retrograde happens when Mercury passes between us and the light, when Mercury aligns between Earth and Sun. And this is going to begin one of the most powerful Mercury cycles of our lifetimes that will assist us in truly changing our minds. And as thoughts are thinks, are things, to quote the great Alan Watts, changing the mind, changing the narration, changing the script, changing the spells can change everything. So I want to show you why I feel we are coming into an opportunity of just dynamic change, and why that change will likely have to start in the heart. Not only because all things do, the art of the chart starts in the heart, but because of the water waves that are being activated with this coming Mercury-Sun dance, this coming Mercury synodic cycle, how we're shifting into a watery time. And I'll invite you to a space where we can do some of this together. So if you were here when I began, you heard just a little bit of Jesu, Joy of a Man's Desiring by J.S. Bach, who certainly didn't play that on a saxophone. Saxophone did not yet exist when that beautiful composition was penned. Maybe it was heard in a way that my daughter has to suffer through regularly now, because I'm pushing her around in the stroller in the morning and she's hearing do re mi so fa fa la so so do ti do so mi, right? Like I'm like solfegging Jesu, Joy of a Man's Desire, to just kind of build my ability to sing, and maybe even more importantly to hear. So I was laughing to myself the other day when I saw a neighbor noticing me do-re-meing my way around. Like, did I just turn 50 or like 500? But anyway, I'm sharing that because this is one of my mercurial offerings right now, which is that I will work on my voice and my ear every day in some capacity for at least 33 minutes a day. Why 33? Because Hermes thrice great. This is the mudra of the messenger, right? Who Mercury stations retrograde for about 3 weeks at a time, 3 times a year. Oh wait, no, Mercury's way too genius for that. Pi times a year. This is true. There are 22 Mercury-Sun cycles in 7 years, 22 sevenths, one of our ancient ways of getting after pi. Mercury and the Sun dance in their own beautiful way about every 116 to 118 days. It's hard to pin it down exactly because Mercury is eccentric, but there are pi Mercury cycles per year when we observe them over great periods of time. How amazing is that? Mercury, the one who brought us numbers, who brought us language, who brought us systems, who brought us astrology, has pi cycles with the sun each year. Well, again, I want to show you astrologically, astronomically, why I know that the coming Mercury-Sun cycle will be one of the most powerful of our lifetimes. For some of you, it will be a Mercury synodic return cycle, or a return to an elemental year similar to the one to which you were born. But for all of us, Mercury in key moments of the coming dance with the sun will bring in the essence of revolution and evolution. And I say that because Mercury will conjoin Sun opposite Uranus, coming soon to a theater called U during Scorpio new moon on November 20th. And then when Mercury aligns with the sun again, this time not from the place on the earth side of the sun, but far away on the other side of the light, that will be in January, and this will be with Pluto. So these invisible ones, Uranus and Pluto, are planets of great change, an opportunity of change. Oftentimes, whether we like it or not, but I always say when they're on the scene, choose change before change chooses you. And it is my feeling and practice that the invisible planets like Uranus and Pluto come to us and come through us via their connection to the visible planets. So when I was born, for example, Mercury was conjoined Pluto, right? And so I'm here to sing the tales of Pluto. But this also works in a more global perspective in the charts that we all share, like that of the moment now. And so when cycles themselves, like this coming Mercury-Sun cycle, has significant alignments to Uranus and to Pluto, it says to me that this is an amazing time for change, for global change, for cultural change, and that this change will likely be that of the mercurial spaces, which work differently for each and every one of us, but generally speaking can be that of mind, of thought, of think, and therefore thing, of how we narrate and write the script. And if we can change the script by rewriting our spells within, then we can change the world without. Now, sadly, so many astrologers just teach that when Mercury is retrograde, everything's going to go wrong. And this is take 3 of this particular broadcast, so I can't deny that sometimes when Mercury is close by, the tech and other things and expression can get wonky. But I often feel like that's because, let me say it this way, that we will get played by Mercury retrograde if we do not choose to play along. Well, how do I play along? And Anna Scorpiana, my beloved, and I are going to guide a team, a crew, through this journey together that I hope will include you. It's not yet posted because she and I have one more meeting to sort out the dates of the gatherings. But I will just post here in the comments that probably the best thing to do is to join my list at GeminiBrett.com. You'll see a join the list option right in the front page. So if you're not on the list, please join that. And I'll just post some of these things in the chats where it's postable right now. So you can join my list at Wow, I'm just seeing that came through really poorly. So let me just write GeminiBrett.com. GeminiBrett.com/sessions also showed up. If you want to book a session with me, look at your own Mercury and your own Mercury cycles, or GeminiBrett.com/constellations if you want to learn more about the School of Astrology's community, where Scorpiana and myself are leading a journey around the planets, one planet per month. We're actually just about to shift from Venus to Mars, but signs of the times dictate that Mercury is a thing to tune into now. All right, so let me show you some charts and some astronomical things, and just say again that we are going to lead a team through this process of playing along with Mercury retrograde so we don't get played, especially at this time of such a powerful cycle as Mercury's astrology and astronomy clearly shows this will be. And it's good to do these things in groups, and we'll be also in our group offerings asking folks if they individually would like to be paired up with a team member to share some of their own devotions. All right, so where to start? With Mercury probably in the middle would be the thing to do. But let me just show you a few images of the moment. Now, I chose to take the ground out from beneath my local feet here in Berkeley, California, and cast this instead with a 0 Aries wheel to show this a little bit more globally. Mercury just recently moved into the sign of Sagittarius. You can see Mercury in this chart, sextile Pluto, opposite Uranus, which is why I'm choosing now to get some of these words out. But a thing we don't necessarily see here is that Mercury is currently at maximum elongation. So the furthest Mercury can ever be from the sun. You know, I think I'll rewind this to yesterday. Mercury just got so far away from the sun. Maximum elongation. So the furthest Mercury can ever be from the sun is 28 degrees. Now, that's not from the sun's point of view. From the sun's point of view, Mercury's circling or ellipsing all the way around every, about 88 Earth days. But from our point of view, since Mercury's orbit is so close to the light, which what we see is Mercury just going in and out of the fire, in and out of the beams, right? And so Mercury, when in the time of evening star, meaning the sun sets, and then there's Mercury to behold. Actually got to see Mercury a few days ago at my solar return time. I was quite surprised to see Mercury, but I did. Yesterday was the greatest opportunity to see the evening star Mercury because Mercury is currently elongated from the sun. And so with Mercury, from our point of view, the liminal one, right, moving from evening star, and then he'll retrograde and go into the flames of the sun and be reborn as a morning star, and then soon afterwards jumping into the light of the sun. Some months later, showing up as evening star and then back into the flames, right? This is one of the reasons why Mercury is known to be this liminal one. Mercury also, because he only can ever get 28 degrees from the sun, like not even a sign away from the sun, as far as the geometry is concerned, 30 degrees away, right? Mercury is only ever visible near the horizons. And the horizons, of course, are the places of greatest change, because the sun will rise to take us from night to day and set to take us from day to night, right? So Mercury is one of the guides of change, of transition, of transformation. I was saying earlier, and again, we're going to see this in the charts, that Uranus and Pluto are these great change agents, and they are. Change also existed before they were discovered. Well, they existed before they were discovered, but we can work much more regularly with the messenger, the liminal one, Mercury, the agent of change. And there are particular Mercury cycles that show this opportunity for change more than others do. And we're coming into one that's just going to be hard to find another cycle that is this strong. And this is why I've titled this video, Everything is About to Change. That being said, fix yourself to fix the world. That is my mantra for the fixed signs like Scorpio, where we find Mercury now. No, we don't. Just yesterday, Mercury moved from Scorpio into Sagittarius, but he is not finished with his scorpionic times. In fact, that's going to get a lot stronger. So before I go there, let me just show you Mercury's speed yesterday, and you can see that here. The declination of 23 degrees means Mercury is close to the Tropic of Capricorn, the southern extreme of the sun's journey. But this speed, where Mercury's speed is 1 degree per day, when Mercury's speed equals the speed of the sun, this is the time of Mercury's maximum elongation. And though Mercury can get 28 degrees from the sun, from Earth's point of view, that doesn't happen in every cycle. Sorry, Isabel decided to soundtrack this video with dog slurping. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but thank you, Isabel. So 24 degrees yesterday was the time of Mercury's maximum elongation. So even though Mercury has not yet put it in reverse, right, retrograde, he's already hit the brakes. So we could slow down, right? And between drive and reverse, we've got to put it in park, right? So as Mercury's going to station, that would be park, right? Shifting in this case from direct to retrograde. Mercury's got to hit the brakes and slow down, right? And Mercury, who was moving faster than the sun, is now in that moment of Mercury the same speed as the sun, even before Mercury goes retrograde, to close this gap between the two, this phase angle as we call it. Well, now that the sun is moving faster than Mercury, and that started last night, the sun is closing that gap, and then Mercury will station retrograde, and that whole thing's going to happen really quickly. So why does that happen? Right, why does Mercury apparently move backward through Earth's zodiac? So let me just go from here with Mercury elongated, in this case at the 1st degree of tropical Sagittarius, exactly opposite Uranus, sextile Pluto, right? Generally speaking, trine Neptune, like connected to these invisible ones, right? Why does Mercury go retrograde at all? And let me show you that Mercury will station retrograde on November 9th, the day of the sun here at like 7th degree of tropical Sagittarius, somewhere near the Scorpion's heart. All right. And will travel in retrograde for about 3 weeks from that time. Sunday, November 9th, Mercury will then station direct on Saturday, November 29th, here at 21 degrees tropical Scorpio. Okay. In between that station retrograde and later station direct in the morning star side, Mercury aligns between us and the light. So this is the coming Mercury cazimi, or Mercury-Sun conjunction. The red font means Mercury retrograde in this AstroGold software, the way I have it set up to display. And you can see that this is the day of the Scorpio new moon, Thursday, Jupiter's day, November 20th, 2025. All right, I'm going to rewind just a moment here to the new moon itself at 2811 Scorpio. And you can see Mercury is just right there, right in the throne room. Well, I want to show you what that looks like here. So before I do, because sometimes this tech doesn't go so well, let me please ask, are you able to see an image of the solar system on your screen? I'll check in with the chat to make sure this is showing up for you. So I'm now circling the sun, and we see the Earth and Moon, and Mercury and Venus and Mars. So let me stop my screen share and make sure that was showing up for you. So someone please say yes if you were just able to see. Melinda, you're first there. Thank you so much for that message. Okay, great. So we're good. So let me show you this moment now in a very different way, right? From this heliocentric or sun-centered model, thanks to the amazing solar system scope astronomy app. You can play with this online for free at solarsystemscope.com. You can download a high def version for, I don't know when I did, I think it was $10. It's a great app. It's really wonderful to compare these geocentric, earth-centered charts to a heliocentric moment. So let me hit now. This is what we're seeing now, and this is what it looks like from that sun-centered or heliocentric point of view. You know, back before we remembered that the sun was at the center of our solar system, it was impossible to explain why planets would appear to stop in their regular course through the zodiac and then start traveling backwards through the stars and the signs. Now that we've put the sun back at the center, we understand that this is just all about ships passing each other in the night or the day, right? So Mars, for example, is retrograde when Earth passes Mars by, just like cars on the highway that you're passing because you drive like a maniac appear to be backwards when you pass them. Well, Earth is currently passing Saturn. So we'll see in the chart, for example, that Saturn is currently retrograde. Okay, it won't be too long before Earth begins our pass of Jupiter. Jupiter's retrograde for a couple-ish months, a little more than that, every 399 days. All right, and Mercury and Venus, who we call the interior planets, some say inferior, which means below, they retrograde for a different reason because their paths are between us and the sun, right? And Mercury's retrograde about 3 times a year, really pi times a year, for about 3 weeks at a time when Mercury is passing Earth by. Now, whether inner planet or interior planet like Mercury or Venus, or exterior planet, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, the middle of a planet's retrograde is just about the time of that planet's perigee, meaning closest to Earth. Okay, so this is this November 20th Scorpio new moon, and it's also a new Mercury. All right, now that being said, there are many different ways to play with planetary cycles. And in this case, I'm talking about a planet in the sun, Mercury's synodic cycle or Mercury-Sun synodic cycle. Well, synod means meeting. Okay, so it's a time like this where, though we can't see the moon, so new moon in that sense is really more like a no moon, we still understand, thanks to Mercury in the math and the tables and such, that this is a time where moon and sun are meeting in Earth's sky, right? So the synod, the meeting. And this is also a time where Mercury and the sun are meeting in Earth's sky. And I use this time, specifically the retrograde Mercury Sun conjunction, to begin the Mercury cycle, though that's not how I was initially taught to do this thing. I've changed my tune a bit. So I see this as new Mercury. Well, let me just show you here in the solar system at that time that while we have Earth, Moon, Mercury, so new Moon, new Mercury, this is in the tropical sign of Scorpio, Earth, Moon, Mercury, Sun. If we turn around and look from the sun's point of view, you're going to see Uranus and the Pleiades in this line as well. Let's see it in the chart here. All right, so Mercury now retrograde. Let me just go, or at maximum elongation, soon to station retrograde. And then this gap between Mercury and the sun quickly closes. Right, and so Mercury will align between Earth and sun on November 20th. 1:23 a.m. Pacific time, so that's fun. Mercury brought us numbers after all. And again, during Scorpio new moon, we'll look at what's on the other side. And the answer is Uranus, right? Having recently returned for the last visit to tropical Taurus, or some unfinished business. Now, importantly, Mercury in this cazimi will also be in a grand water trine with Cancer, Jupiter, Pisces, Saturn, Neptune. And that's a very powerful thing. All right, but let me just go again to when Mercury stations direct. First, back to the retrograde. Notice that this is happening with Mars. And Mars helps us cut. Mars helps us separate, right? The cazimi with Uranus. And Uranus helps us change, sometimes whether we'd like it or not. But hopefully we can do this in a deeply nurturing, caring, Cancer, Jupiter, expanded, and also highly mystical and spiritual, formed Saturn, but unformed Neptune way. All right, and then Mercury is going to station direct about 3 weeks after the retrograde, and that's here at the 21st degree of Scorpio. It's interesting at that time to see that it's now Venus, Mercury, and the moon between Saturn and Neptune and Jupiter, all keeping this grand water trine alive. And Venus, Uranus, I'm sure that's going to participate with many of the wish lists and offerings that we find in community as we explore this cycle, experience this cycle, and choose change together. All right. So let me show you here. This is Mercury between Earth and Sun. And again, this happens pi times a year, about 3 times a year. And therefore, the Mercury-Sun cycles are about 4 months long, right? Thrice a year, thrice great Hermes. Well, Mercury then will show up here on the morning star side of the Sun. And not too long after, really go under the beams of the Sun. We just can't see Mercury often because Mercury stays so close to the light from Earth's point of view. And that great light of mystery of spirit is blinding, yes? But eventually Mercury will align for another type of cazimi, another type of conjunction. I'll show you in the chart. As we go through the days, Mercury will elongate. And again, that can be found when Mercury's speed equals that of the Sun. So that date will be here. Looks like December 7th. Mercury's speed equals Sun speed, about 1 degree per day. And then Mercury will start closing the space between the two. And so as I just move through the days, you're going to see this phase angle or this gap between Mercury and the Sun close. So we get here, for example, I'm in January, and now Mercury's only 9 degrees from the Sun in Capricorn. And this is the time of the Venus cazimi, Venus-Sun conjunction, Venus behind the Sun and Mars much further behind. It's a very powerful time in January of 2026. All right, well, Mercury's going to wait a bit. Mercury will conjoin the Sun in the sign of Aquarius on January 21st, 2026. So it's like I missed it by a few days here. So something we could never see. We're like literally just trusting the math at this point in the history because he always comes back, all right? But you can see this alignment of Earth, Sun, Mercury. But let me go way out into space and you can hear Isabel barking. I have to actually push a button here to show the dwarf planets since Pluto's demotion, right? This is Earth, Sun, Mercury, Pluto. All right. So while on November 20th, when Mercury comes between Earth and the Sun on Scorpio new moon, opposite Uranus, and in this grand water trine, when Mercury goes back behind the Sun for exterior conjunction, or some say superior conjunction, which means above, this is Mercury in Aquarius with Pluto. All right. And we still have Jupiter in Cancer, Saturn, Neptune in Pisces. Neptune's just about to leave Pisces for good back into Aries, and Saturn will soon after follow. But I like seeing the water currents alive, and we're going to see water take shape as the water does when you pour it in the cup. In many other regards in this very powerful cycle. All right. So why such a powerful cycle? All cycles are. One of those reasons is Scorpio is one of the places where Mercury keeps a node. All right. So this is not one. The last time was November 11th, 2019, when there was a Mercury transit, meaning with some technology, we're able to actually see Mercury pass across the solar disk. That can only happen when the Sun and Mercury are in the signs of Taurus or Scorpio, because that's where Mercury's nodes live. And so in general, I think of Scorpio and Taurus cycles for that reason as superpowered, but I'm really looking, as I shared before, of the Scorpio new moon, Mercury cazimi, and new Mercury aligned opposite Uranus, a planet of great and sometimes sudden change, revelation, lightning bolt, right? And then Mercury later, a couple months later in January 21st, aligning behind the Sun, right? So November 20th, Earth, Moon, Mercury, Sun, and really Uranus back there, Earth, Moon, Mercury, Sun, right? The interior Mercury conjunction, Earth, Mercury, Sun. January 21st, the exterior, Earth, Sun, Mercury, somewhere in the great beyond, literally as far from Earth as possible, right? We call that apogee, far from Earth. Whereas when Mercury comes between Earth and Sun, perigee, close to Earth. Now, I was taught that when Santa comes close, you bring a wish list and you bring some offerings, carrots for the reindeer, cookies for the big guy, all right? And that's how I like to play with Mercury, so I won't get played. And this is the kind of thing that we're going to do working through group. All right. Whether you choose to join our group journey or not, please know that this is a very powerful time for change on Earth. And look, fixed signs, Mercury between Earth and Sun in Scorpio, Mercury on the other side of the Sun in Aquarius, fixed signs, fix yourself to fix the world. As you change everything. That is literally why we incarnate, all right? However, though we're going to go deep into the Scorpio mysteries, which sometimes are waters that prefer to stay hidden, and we can do this in groups. We can support one another. You saw those grand water trines of Cancer, Jupiter. Let's be family. Pisces, Neptune, Saturn, we're all one, you know. And then this Aquarius exterior conjunction in the cycle with Pluto, also with Venus, interestingly, like Mercury's hanging out with Venus on both sides between Earth and Sun and Scorpio. Well, Venus and Scorpio at the time, and then outside of the Sun where Venus is in the sign of Aquarius. Okay, well, I work with these two, so let's call this edit chart Mercury exterior cazimi. All right, now let's go back a day and look at when Mercury came between Earth and Sun on the other side. And we will call this one Mercury interior cazimi. All right, well, I work with these two charts as two profound points of the cycle. Let's get two charts shown side by side like this. All right. So Mercury between Earth and the Sun in the sign of Scorpio, November 20th. On the other side of the Sun in the sign of Aquarius, January 21st. All right. Well, I see these Mercury between us and the Sun. The new Mercury is the intention of the cycle that will only come to fruition if we are willing to go through this initiation that is encoded in the exterior conjunction. So Mercury between Earth and Sun, setting the intention, planting the seed that necessitates this initiation when Mercury's back behind the Sun, so far from us, right? If you're familiar with the mono myth, as it's often called, right? There's this crossing the threshold into the special world and the initiation in the cave, right? And finding that elixir if we survive and then bringing it back to the tribe. All right. And so I call this a Scorpio Aquarius cycle for Mercury coming up. In a sense, I'm transitioning into it now with Mercury elongated from the sun, about to retrograde and dive into the flames. But it's on that date on November 20th where I will see the Scorpio Aquarius cycle beginning. That being said, with the elongation last night, I quit sugar and said I will give you 33 minutes of working on my voice in my ear every day. And so the neighbors are going to have to hear more of me. Do, re, mi, so, fa, fa, la, so, do, ti, do, so, mi. By the way, I couldn't do that 3 days ago. So like, it's growing, you know. A wish that I have is to increase my ability to hear, and voice, to sing, so I can teach some of the mysteries of the harmonics that have compelled me over the recent years. Many of you know that and have heard me hack my way through it. All right. And I'm also like sick of being out of shape and wondering where this sugar addiction comes from. And I have some clues around that. So why not just give an offering? I'm going to give the cookies, right, to Mercury. It's like, hey, these are yours. By the way, when I do this, I will either do it for the retrograde period, and the retrograde period is between November 9th and November 29th. All right. Or I'll do it between the dates of maximum elongations, which were yesterday, October 29th, 2025, and then December 6th, 2025. So obviously that's a bit of a longer commitment. On and I will be guiding a Scorpio retrograde period and asking people to have a fast for 3 weeks. Now that fast doesn't mean, you know, something around food. That's aligned to my own intention of like tuning into my health. I'm Gemini rising, so Scorpio's on my 6th of illness and health and practice. And by the way, that can be exercise. Mercury stationed retrograde with Mars. It aligns with Saturn at the interior cazimi. Well, for those of us who want to get shape, Saturn will help us stop and have boundaries, like don't eat the cookies, and Mars will help us get out and ride the bike, which is another thing I've committed to each day for at least 33 minutes a day. Do some form of physical exercise. That one's more married to the I give sugar, right? And I also give exercise, right? But what can I receive? And the wish is help me make this a part of what I do. Help me choose to be more healthy, right? Whether I have to see where the corruption in the system is or not, like I'm willing to look, I'm ready to go within, Scorpio, right? Please assist me as you're coming close to Earth and in my 6th house, in my health and in my practices. So I want to grow in my music. I want to grow in my ability to hear and to sing and express. And so I'll give you 33 minutes a day at least, where I'm with my saxophone or with my lute or whatever, or with the piano and with the voice in the ear, right? Like help me bring those things through. Thank you here. Pine pollen helps strengthen testosterone, which could help motivate you to work out. I believe it does other things too. Thanks for that advice. And then this, of course, reminder coming in through the chat. Sugar is so awful it weakens our immune system. You can take generic zinc lozenges to help strengthen it at the first signs of a flu or cold. It's nice to have community, right? And it's nice to do things in community. And so bringing us back to this cycle, Mercury between Earth and the Sun in Scorpio, and then behind the Sun in Aquarius. Okay, so I see this as the intentions. Let's Scorpio. Now, if you were born with Pisces rising, Scorpio is in your 9th. of journeys and astrology and learnings and teachings and divination and many other things, right? If you were born Virgo rising, then Scorpio is your third, of expression and tools and the skills that we develop to help have our needs met, right? And so I want to work with individual charts, or at least with the 12 maps. Like if it's Taurus, then Scorpio's on the 7th relationship and relating and consideration and allowing ourselves to be seen and to see the other, right? So much of this, of course, will have to do with the moment of your own becoming and how the solar system expressed then. But globally speaking, let's just speak about the nature of Scorpio. And if we have Scorpio intentions, what might it mean to have an Aquarius initiation? Now, if it was the opposite, which Mercury can't do, but Venus can and did for many, many decades, if we have Aquarius initiations to have a breakthrough, to find equality, equanimity, right? Then a Scorpio initiation would be like, fine, but you can't do all of that just in the mind, right? Like you got to get into the muck. You got to get into the heart. You got to get into that deep stuff. You got to dive into the things that are hidden, right? So if you want to change the way that we relate in love, fine, but that's not going to happen until the heart breaks open, right? When I'm looking at a Scorpio intention that necessitates an Aquarius initiation, then it's we want to get into the hidden waters. We want to open to the art of the heart. We choose authenticity. And there's going to be some initiations in the realms of Aquarius, of community, right? There's many other ways of our hopes and dreams, you know. Well, just think about that. If you choose to be more authentic, right? And we might use naughty tools like sugar to bury some of that stuff down or booze or whatever it may be, right? So it'll often be the case that the fast that we choose to help our wishes come through relates, in this case with Scorpio cycle, to our authenticity. Well, oftentimes our authenticity scares the heck out of people, right? So like Anna and I had a little argument last night in front of the kids. Unfortunately, the 10-year-old's like, yo, that's not cool. And that baby just heard all that, right? So really appreciate that reflection. And sometimes as we're choosing authenticity, which we are, and it's on our altar, and we're quitting sugar, right? Some things are going to come up, right? And we can see how that can stress our community, right? You see the kind of Aquarius initiation that's going to go on in that realm, right? And Aquarius is so much more than community alone. Aquarius is also on my 9th and hosts my midheaven. So there's something for me personally where my work is going to come through in this way. But how can we hold community space where people are allowed to go deep? Right? There's a couple of things that I'm having in my Mercury fast and wish list that I'm not sharing with anyone. Maybe not even my partner. Don't tell her that. But we'll see. You know, there's some things that are just very private. There's some things that are deeply hidden in our Scorpio waters, and that's okay. But we can also go through with others on a journey. We don't need to language everything to support one another and knowing that we're going through something. All right. Well, one thing I'll say, like with all this aligned that I chose to do, is I was cast aside by an old friend some years ago. That's strong language. He chose not to spend time with me because of a choice that I had made. You probably all know what I'm talking about. And I recently visited the place where he lives, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to reach out. Like, I don't need that to be a forever thing just because I felt cast aside at the time. And I felt like being punished for a health decision I made was not cool at all. But you know what? Like, I can bury that hatchet. Like, I don't have to choose to stay separated from somebody that I have loved just because I felt hurt at that time. And I think many of us have the opportunity to change our minds in the way that we relate or once related to many that we love, because there has been so much divide and conquer that comes through, especially the space wave. So like I've really struggled with social media spaces and haven't like posted, which obviously is not great for my work, you know, just because I turn those things on, it's just like, oh, what a nightmare, this world. And how people connect to it, right? Well, I'm still sorting this one out, but I think there might be during the retrograde period, I will post something each day and interact and engage again. You know, you feel the kind of Aquarius initiation. That might be something I do more on the other side when Mercury's close to the sun. But, you know, it's personal things that we should choose on our wish list and in the offerings that we make, which likely will relate to the wishes we have and vice versa. Somebody wants to be more present, well, quick coffee for a few weeks during this retrograde happening. You see what I'm saying? But just because it's a very personal thing doesn't mean we shouldn't do this together. So many of you here, like I see you, Rachel, are involved in the Constellations community, the School of Astrology's Constellations community, which is so amazing. We'll be keeping that going, of course, during this whole time, but we're also going to do like a mini short Mercury retrograde offerings and wish list. Change your mind and fix yourself to fix the world journey coming up soon. And again, please be on my mailing list if you want to hear more about that. So you can sign up at geminibrett.com. For those of you who are in Constellations, you'll be offered a significant discount if you want to add this to the things that you're already doing with us. Rachel, I want to read, says, it's in my 12th house. So spending some time in the studio working on a painting about Mercury and work around myself undoing. I can't wait to see that painting, Rachel, if you choose to show it to the world. It's a 12th thing. Yeah, so 12th house stuff, you know, like interestingly, a world that people in the tradition associate the 12th with hidden enemies. Well, you know, we're being told we have so many hidden enemies now, and they're all out to get you. And just because they are doesn't mean you shouldn't be paranoid, is the fun Scorpio joke there. You know, but it's hard to be on the Sagittarian journey if we don't hide Scorpio away into the 12th, because you can't take the great quest if fear exists. But later we learn to look into those places and see that we're very much like steered by that deep, watery space. All right, well, let me show you a couple really important things that we learned about Mercury cycles in general. So Gary Caton, who's a dear friend and has been a mentor to me in astrology, has a really wonderful book, first of 3 Mercury books that's out. The only one that's out so far, but the other 2 will come. But it's on the Mercury elemental years. And you know what? Let me just, as I mentioned Gary there, find an image of Gary's book, which I very highly recommend. All right, and let me put this on the screen. Trying to not put other things on the screen when I do. All right. We're all allowed to have our hidden parts too, right? So here's Mercury's Hermetica Tritica, the Mercury elemental year. Highly, highly recommended. There's one of my favorite self-portraits that Gary took some time ago. So Mercury elemental years, which I first learned from Daniel Gemario, they also show us the great meta retrograde of Mercury cycles. Okay, so let me just show you. First, this is thanks to AstroSeek, astro-seek.com, a really wonderful place that lets us play with amazing tools. I just asked them to show me the Mercury retrograde Sun conjunctions over the course of this 7-year period from 2021 to 2028. And I'll just show you that in that time, you'll see that these interior conjunctions with Mercury and the Sun, so Mercury between Earth and the Sun, which means Mercury retrograde conjunct Sun, we're air sign, air sign, air sign, air sign, air sign, air sign. And it's like this. There's either 6 or 4. So we get 4 in the Earth. Thanks, Mercury. Sometimes there's 5, right? 5 fire signs. And notice that our most recent interior Mercury-Sun conjunction was in the fire sign of Leo. All right? So that was on July 31st. If I was showing also the direct Mercury-Sun conjunctions, we would see that Mercury went behind the Sun in the sign of Virgo. All right? But notice that now we're shifting out of this fire period and into the water. And this is kind of an interesting look here. Actually, let me update this to, I'm going to go a little further in time. So I was saying there's usually 6 or 4 cycles per element. So sometimes 5. Here you go, 6, 4, 5. Is this 6 or 5 and 5, right? This Aquarius one, look at this, 2947 Aquarius, so close to Pisces, right? So it could have just as easily have been 6 water cycles followed by 4 air cycles. But in this case, there's this intermingling of the air and water, which is so fun. Because if I choose to take away this at least 1 planet retrograde, and let's tighten our time. So I'll just look at like 2024 to 2027. We're going to see that we've been in these, what I call fire air cycles, because Mercury between Earth and the Sun in the fire signs, and then behind the Sun in the air signs. And that shifted a little bit in this recent one that we're just finishing. So Mercury between Earth and Sun in Leo, and then on the other side of the Sun in Virgo. Okay, well now this Scorpio Aquarius cycle that we're moving into that I've been speaking about here. And remember this Scorpio on Scorpio new moon opposite Taurus, Uranus, opposite Taurus. And then this Aquarius, Earth, Sun, Mercury, Pluto way out there, and Venus close by. Well, notice that most typically when we have an interior retrograde Mercury-Sun conjunction in a water sign, the exterior will be in a Earth sign. So Pisces, Taurus cycle, a Cancer, Virgo cycle, a Scorpio, Capricorn cycle, right? Pisces, Taurus cycle. I say Pisces, even though that says Aquarius, just to show you how the things work. But when we transition to the new element, instead of like water, earth, see that water, fire to set up the earth fire period. And why I call this the meta retrograde, let me show only the inners where I feel we set the intentions for the cycle, like the new Mercuries, okay? And let me expand this again to a greater length of time. Let's do 2020 to 2030. So see how water, air, earth, fire, water, air, earth, fire. All right. Well, of course, in astrology, we're used to the elements going the other way, right? Aries, fire, to Taurus, earth, to Gemini, air, to Cancer, water, to Leo, fire, to Virgo, earth, to Libra, air, to Scorpio, water, to Sagittarius, fire, to Capricorn, earth, to Aquarius, air, to Pisces, water. Like you all know that. It's kind of a weird way through the elements, by the way. But just as Mercury retrogrades more often than any planet, we spend a lot of attention there. Mercury's retrogrades also retrograde through the elements, all right? And typically, again, he will do 4 or 6 cycles in a particular element before shifting. So air to earth, right? Instead of earth to air, like Capricorn to Aquarius, or Taurus to Gemini, or Virgo to Libra, we're going the meta retrograde. We're going backwards through the elements. So Mercury helps us look back. He helps us shift the order. He helps us as the liminal one change things up and rewrite the script. All right. Well, as we come into all this water time from all of these fire cycles, this is another AstroSeek tool. Check out how in 2025, or really 2024, but notice that this is from the sun's Aries ingress. That's how they're defining Aries, which I can dig. Look at how Mercury spent most time in the fire elements. All right. And now we're coming into, here's 2025 in March to March of 2026. See how now the water becomes prevalent. We get to see that even more so in this 2026 to 2027 time, right? And this reason is because where these retrograde conjunctions happen, and yeah, that means that's where the retrograde happens, right? So as Mercury hits the brakes and turns around and spends some time, you know, revisiting these degrees he's already passed, and he goes direct, he's going to like visit an area of the zodiac thrice. And though Mercury will station retrograde in Sagittarius in early degrees with Mars, who helps us cut and break away from and change, Mercury will station direct in Scorpio and spend most of this particular loop in Scorpio. And look, notice he's starting in Sagittarius and fire going back into the water. Well, that's because we're now in this transition time from fire cycles to a time of water cycles. All right. So Mercury's been empowering the fire, the will, the spirit, the quest. And now we'll be focusing in helping bring our awareness and consciousness and Mercury and language and expression and spells to the ways, the waterways, the ways of the heart. And Scorpio is a place where we can often find the deep water, the unseen water, the buried water. And this is a time where we can open, as I like to say, open the spillways. Okay, because we could break the dam and then we're going to flood the whole town. And sometimes that's how authenticity first looks. Somebody says, how you doing? And you don't say, I'm good. How are you? Which is what sadly we're cultured to do. How are you isn't a question. It's a greeting. Think about that. Feel about that. Right? But the appropriate response, I like to say, is, are you really asking? And when that friend says, yes, now we can sit and cry and laugh and go crazy together, right? But if we at least just like offer that one consensual piece of, are you really asking, right? Instead of just flooding right away. But the gateway to that authenticity is just letting it flood, right? So where are my feels? What am I hiding behind the sugar or whatever it might be, right? What are you hiding behind your devices, you know? And what happens if we give that up for a few weeks? Now, especially in the long ones, the elongations to elongation, I usually allow myself 3 cheats. So we'll have a birthday this weekend and we'll eat some cake, you know, and we're going to go on a trip to San Diego with the kids, you know, so there'll be a couple other times and I'm okay with that. Right. And maybe I won't go there. That's like up to me. But Hermes, thrice great. Well, as far as I'm concerned, allow 3. These are powerful times that give us the opportunity to avoid getting played when Mercury is close by and all up in our sphere by playing along. And one of the things that I know I will be more connected to at the end is song, because I'm making space for more of the messenger's ways to come assist. And I know that these initiations and rituals and ceremonies that we can lead ourselves through are really empowered when we do them in group. I'm really blessed to have a partner like Scorpiana who will go there, and I'm blessed to have community like you. And I hope you'll join the two of us on this journey that we'll be leading through different classes and coaching circles and pairing people up who want to be paired to hold space for one another as we give offerings to Mercury along with our wishes, so that we won't get played by Mercury retrograde, but rather we'll play along. So GeminiBrett.com, sign up on the list. We'll see you there.